mosquito misting systems, Pyrethrins, Pyrethrins, Synergists, and Bayer makes a move for Monsanto, all on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, here with you every week discussing all things pests. Hey, we got an exciting podcast for you today. We're going to be talking about mosquito misting systems. I hope you had a wonderful week, a wonderful weekend, that you enjoyed yourself, and you're getting ready to get back on this horse called the pest control business. And I wanted to thank a couple of people this week for liking us and giving us some warm comments on Facebook. The first one is Toronto Exterminator at Bedbugs Toronto. I guess they're out of Toronto, Canada. So, they liked us on Twitter. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for liking and following us. And also, JJ Purdom. He's a service technician at Bird Pest Management in Newman, California. And he gave us a 5-star in a review on Facebook. He says, I love this podcast, and I feel like I'm better at my job because of listening to it daily. Thanks, Frank, and keep up the awesome work you do, brother. Hey, thank you for that warm comment, for taking the time and for giving us a like and really being part of this podcast. So thank you. I wanted to share with you a tech tip. It's a great resource. There's actually on the mosquito and the Zika virus over at cdc.gov. There's a bunch of posters and infographics that you can get. There's a link to it on the podcast. Check it out, because you can download these infographics and just retweet them and send them out to your base. And it's a really, really good tool that you can share. It's free, so you don't have to create your own infographic if you're having trouble making infographics. This is a great one that you can actually share. So check out that link and take a look at it. On the SEO front, check out your 404s. If you don't know what 404s are those pages that you probably changed the URL or changed the slug, and now you get a 404. And you don't even know you have them. And your Webmaster tool from Google Webmaster has a place where you can check to those 404, those errors, and it's a missing page. So check that out, and you can use the Yoast SEO tool if you have a WordPress site or another site to redirect those to either the right page or mark them as a deleted page if you deleted those pages and they're no longer there, and it'll tell the server, it'll tell Google what to do with that and where to put it. So you need to do that, because that will definitely help. It doesn't hurt too much in the SEO ranks, but it is just for customer that's visiting your site and finds a page that is missing. They want to know why that page is missing. Has it been deleted, or you can reroute them to a new page that you would like them to take a look at, and it just produces a better user experience. In the book of the week, I'd like to share with you a great book. It's a short book. It's not that big, but it's a powerful book on leadership. Very simple. The 5 Levels of Leadership: Proven Steps to Maximize Your Potential by John C. Maxwell. I love this book. And the reason I love this book is it lets you see where you're at in your leadership ability and what is the next step to get to the next level of leadership. And there's 5 levels, and you basically start out as a tyrant, barking out orders, and you end up influencing people around you. And I think it's a marvelous book if you're in any type of management, whether it's sales management, pest control, technician management. You're going to start a company, you're in a company that you started, and you're having trouble managing people, and it's no longer about managing, but really about leadership. And it's a great book. I highly recommend it. You can use our link to get it. It would help the podcast if you do that. If you want to get this free download and a free book, you can use it at audibletrial.com/pestgeek. And that would really help out the podcast, and we really appreciate that. In the pest alerts, there is a new study that came out. Viruses detected in Swedish mosquito larvae. And we think we're the only people having problem with viruses around the world, because we've got this whole focus on the Zika virus. And there are other viruses that happen in other parts of the world that never get any notice because it doesn't affect us here, or probably not yet. But after the outbreak of the Okelbo disease in northern Sweden in 2013, researchers at Umeå University were able to trace the virus to mosquitoes in the area of Lovenger. It says, in a new study, researchers have shown that mosquito larvae in the Västerbotten region also carry the virus that can cause infectious disease. These include the Synergists virus, which is SINDBIS virus, which causes the Okelbo disease, which is associated with fever, rashes, prolonged joint pain. I got a link to that. Check out the original study, and then also the technical study that was done on the mosquito, and the one from the university. We have a link to both of those. So you can kind of understand that, hey, these diseases can easily come over to us here from another part, even as far as Sweden. And you need to stay on top of that, of what's going on with all these diseases around the world. That you say, well, that's on the other side, in Europe, it could affect us. It could easily come over. We are international travel to this country, and we're not exempt from that because of the proximity or the how far away these countries are. In the news, the AMA news, this weekend I was listening to Bloomberg Radio, and I saw the announcement by Bloomberg that Bayer is making a move to acquire Monsanto. This is after Monsanto failed to acquire Syngenta, which was acquired by the Chinese chemical company ChemChina. So check it out. I got a link to that on the Bloomberg News, which it's kind of weird. You think that Bayer would buy Monsanto, where Monsanto is not a big pesticide company. They're basically a seed manufacturer, and they produce the active ingredient in Roundup, and they make the seeds which are treated with Roundup to make them resistant to weeds and get higher yields. And I think Bayer is very interested in entering into that market to basically increase their type of portfolio. I mean, they're involved in medication, all kinds of pesticides and fungicides, and now they're looking at a move to acquire this $40 billion giant. So we'll see what happens in with all the controversy around Monsanto. Is it really worth it for them to own this company? So, check out the link. We got that to the news. We're going to be discussing mosquito misting systems and the controversy and benefits and risks and the good, bad, and the ugly of mosquito misting systems. Now, mosquito misting systems are not a new idea. They're basically a carryover from the markets of horses, barns, livestock for fly and odor control. And they're known as automatic ULV spraying systems, ULV for ultra low volume spraying systems. And they've been adapted for the residential mosquito control market. And it's been taking off. And the biggest drawback to the mosquito system is, number one, is it's very expensive. I mean, it's not a system that is cheap to buy, cheap to own, and cheap to operate. This is a luxury ticket item. This is like owning, owning a Bentley and a Rolex. Nobody really needs it. You buy it because you can afford it, and you can afford to own it. You can afford to maintain it. That's the mentality that you have to have if you're going to sell mosquito misting system. You're selling a luxury ticket item, and it's mainly based for outdoor user experience. I mean, if people who really want to use their outdoor and they live on a very nice property, and they are always entertaining, and they don't want to have somebody come in on a frequent basis and spray. They want 24/7 mosquito control and be able to use their home and yard whenever they want to. And they have the ability and the money to acquire a system and to maintain it. The biggest drawback has been the systems that are on the market are really ugly. I mean, these are 55-gallon drums with a pump on top and a cover, and with either a blue or black drum. And most people, that if you're going to install this in a $1 to $10 million mansion, it's an ugly piece of equipment to have back there, and people don't like it. So the companies that have done really well at making nice systems for the home, one of them is Mistaway, which is the top brand. I mean, these guys are the Bentley of the mosquito market. And then USA Mist has a very, very nice system that's a little bit more affordable. You're entering with a Mistaway system, you're easily entering into a $2,500 to $3,000 installation, depending on how complex that installation is. And with a USA Mist, it probably drops down to about a third of that to 2/3 of that. So it's a very, very, very good systems. I've looked at them both. I really like them. So it's just a matter of if you're going to, depending on what you're selling. I mean, Mistaway has the real only tankless system. So you plug it into a water supply, it automatically mixes the chemical, and you don't have to use a tank. USA Mist has a very decorative tank that they've made that doesn't look like a tank. And that's the advantage of those two systems. But what are the good, the bad, and the ugly about misting system? Well, they're not set it and forget it. They're not just, we installed it and you fill it every month and that's it. No, the tanks, the lines, the valves, they get mold, and mold builds up because of the pyrethrin that is used, and it just, mold builds up in these tanks, it builds up in the lines, the heads get clogged. You need to do maintenance around these systems. So when you sell it and the customer all of a sudden a year later he's calling, hey, all our valves are clogged. Well, it's going to be, a $200, $250 proposition to get that tank cleaned, to get those lines cleaned out, and to take those valves, the nozzles, and to put them in acid or, in a product like, like Lime Away or something like that, to get those nozzles cleaned and then put it all back together. So it isn't a set it and forget it type of business, but there are solutions for that. And the water that is needed, you can't just plug your hose up to it and fill up the tank. A lot of people think they'll just buy the system, and then they'll do it themselves, and they'll refill it because they don't want to spend the money on the refilling, because that's where the pest control company really makes money. I mean, that's how we do it. We charge for a service to handle a chemical, fill up your tank. So, it's kind of like the people that buy say, I don't want to mess with it. I got a yacht, a 70-foot yacht in the back of the house. I want to come in and I want to enjoy my yard, and I don't want to have to do any work. I want everyone to do everything for me, and I don't want to be filling up a system. And that's the client that you want for that type of system. If you're going to spend $2,000 on the system, then you're going to spend about, anywhere between $700 to $1,500 a year on refills. And that's where you make your money, on those refills. So it's a very lucrative business, but you have to find the right client. It isn't everyone can afford this. There's also problems using it near bodies of water, because a lot of the chemicals have restrictions of 75 to 100 feet from bodies of water. I mean, if you've got a koi pond in your garden, you can't use this system with traditional pyrethrum or pyrethroids. You're going to kill the fish. And that's one of the issues. Also, people who have butterfly gardens and things, you can't use a system like this. It's very toxic. Most of these products are toxic to bees and pollinators. They're insects. So those are the challenges that you have with that. You might have local restrictions with local government and state that don't allow the product to be used, or they don't allow the system to be used. Florida is one of those places where we have a lot of properties with man-made lakes, and you can't spray within 10 feet of a lake. Well, the problem with mosquito, it's in ultra low volume. I mean, these are very small microns that when they're sprayed in high winds, they're going to travel for a mile down the road to the neighbors and things like that. And your neighbor might not want, pesticide sprayed on their property. And what most people are selling these products as is, well, we use a natural botanical product called pyrethrum. And it's made from the flower of it's extracted from the chrysanthemum flower. And that is true. It is a botanical product. It is natural. It's all natural. To humans, it's very, very low toxicity. But these products to very low mammalian toxicity, so birds, animals, dogs, we're not really sensitive to them, especially in that low, where it's diluted in water and it's sprayed in micro doses during times where you're not really outside, which is in the mornings or in the afternoon, in the evening. And so the issue with most of the time these spray, you have to spray, like twice a day minimum to get control of where these insects are. As always, you always have to find the breeding sites and install it. If you got a complex landscape, well, we've had installations that take 2 days to perform, because we have to raise up pavers, we have to, drill under concrete and put them through, because, they're elaborate landscapes, and the mulch has to be moved and all things like that. Some systems are straightforward. You put it on the line of the roof and you put it along the fence line and you're done. And it all depends on how elaborate that system needs to be for you to get control. So it's not really one of those things where you just, show up, set it up, and you're done. It does require, design. It does require risers and different valves and different connections to make it happen. And of course, the system itself, what product are you going to be able to use? And there are a lot of products now available, a lot more than before, since most of these things came from, like I said, equestrian and farms and barns where horses are kept and things like that. It's been adapted to the residential environment, and some of the products that were available for these types of environment are not allowed to be used in residential. So products had to be made for residential use. There's also controversy around the product, but not only the product, but the synergists that are used in these products. And here's what we have to understand about natural products. Natural products break down very quickly in the environment. Second of all, their efficacy on insects it's marginal, somewhere around 30 to 40%. Depending on the species, you can get, 60, 70, 80% control. Without a synergist, a lot of these products do not work very well to actually control. The synergist doesn't kill the insect. The synergist enhances the ability for that insecticide to kill that insect. And products like PBO and lauryl sulfate, sodium lauryl sulfate are synergists that are used, but also depending on if you're going to use surfactants to kill. And when we get into outdoor, the hard time that people have with outdoor products is if you're a GHP, a traditional GHP guy that does mainly general household pests, indoor pests, you have a very difficult time understanding outdoor products for lawn and ornamental, mosquito control, things like that, because it's a totally different animal. It's a totally different world. And with a lot of products, especially with natural products, like there's a couple of alternatives to the misting system, which is called a fertigation system, or you install it to your sprinkler system and you spray products like, the mint oils and especially like cedar oil. Cedar oil is one of those products heavily pushed because of the low mammalian toxicity in the environment, and it controls a lot of these pests. But you have to make frequent applications. The way you get around having a person frequently apply it is to automate the process. And you can put it through your sprinkler system. If you have a well, or you can put an anti-siphon valve, and you can install one of these systems into the water supply. And then once your system turns on, it automatically will, twice a week, will spray your yard, and it keeps your pest away because you can automate it. It becomes very difficult to use these products without the automation because they just don't last. A lot of people talk about the issue of natural products don't work, and that natural products don't work, and that they don't last, and they forget that in GHP we used pyrethrins, which don't last. Pyrethrins are meant for a knockdown. We've been using them forever for roach control knockdown, for flushing. And people say, nobody ever says that, well, they just don't work. No, they work the way they were designed to work. Every time I look at what we're going to do, designing a protocol, designing a program, designing a product line, I'm looking at the biology first. What are we dealing with? And what's the location? Is it an indoor pest or is it an outdoor pest? Is it a pest that can be, is it a knockdown product or is it a residual product? What are we looking to accomplish is the question. Then we can decide on the procedures, the methods, and the chemicals. But it always starts out with biology first, understanding what we're dealing with. And with pyrethrum and most of they're using permethrin in a lot of these products. And, people have a big issue with spraying permethrin all the time. So it's a controversial type of business and service to get into. And the way people have gotten away with a lot around it is just basically by saying we use a natural product and we use a botanical product and it's totally safe and things like that. But that's not necessarily true, because pyrethrum and pyrethroids are very toxic to aquatic and aquatic vertebrates. So its location, if you have a property that is waterfront property, you're not going to be able to install one of these systems and not have a problem. So the Synergist, what happens with the Synergist is that there's controversy around the Synergists, because the Synergist can also be toxic to certain species, like aquatics. Mainly a fish is like one of those things where they're toxic. Everything is just about toxic to them. And I've got customers that want to install a mosquito misting system and they have a koi pond. I said, you're not going to be able to do it with the traditional products. We're going to have to use products that don't kill the fish and don't kill the mosquito, but you're going to make 4 or 5 applications per day, and the use of that chemical is going to be twice as much versus using the one that you were intending to buy with the natural pyrethrum, because you only have to make 2 applications a day. So you're going to spend four times more on chemical than you are with choosing a pyrethrum, but you can't use it, so it's a moot point. You can't even get that system, and we have to do all those evaluations. I got to look down the line and saying, does your next door neighbor have fish? Because a lot of properties do that. A lot of properties, they have koi ponds, and we have to be very careful, because if we install a misting system, this guy's pond is gonna, they're gonna get $10,000 worth of fish that are gonna die. So that needs to become a consideration. So the piperonol butoxide is a product that is used in a lot of products to enhance, especially pyrethrum, but also in natural products like cedar oil, cinnamon, geranol, and clove oil, because these oils by themselves, there's a couple of studies we're going to publish about the effectiveness of these. We're going to do an analysis of all these oils and how they kill, and you can actually get clove oil, get 100% kill on certain species, but only when you add the PBO to it. If you don't add it, you only get about 40%. But if you add it, you get 100% control of even roaches with these types of products. And this is where people wanting a natural product, they have to add the Synergist to it, but now the Synergist becomes an issue of contention with people who want natural products. And understand that people who want natural products, natural services, low toxicity, they're concerned about their kids being sprayed with this stuff all the time. And it's a concern, and it's a legitimate concern. We can't just discard that. All right. So, the piperonol or the PBO is very low toxicity. I mean, it has an LD50 of greater than 5,000 milligrams per kilogram of pound. You literally have to drink the bottle to get some type of acute toxicity. I mean, you got to drink a gallon of this stuff. 5,000 milligrams per air. If you weigh 150 pounds times 5,000, that's 500,000. 500 and a half. So you need about 750,000 milligrams of this active ingredient for you to have acute toxicity. It's been labeled as a group C, a possible carcinogen. And we have a link for you to understand the carcinogens, on this study. There's a group A, group B, C, D, and E. Group A is a human carcinogen. So it's already been classified as a human carcinogen. There's no question about it. Group B is a probable human carcinogen. Group C is like, well, it's possible some lab animals have gotten cancer, but not all. So, did we use the dosage too high? Is it unreasonable? There's questions. There's not enough information to make a classification. Then D is not classified as a human carcinogen, and E, there's no evidence of carcinogen to humans. Okay, so and just so you understand, bifenthrin, permethrin, and cypermethrin are a group C carcinogen. They're possible, and the overuse of bifenthrin and these products are a concern to people because they read these articles, and when you have a person reading an article, they're usually not reading entomological data. They're not reading these type of studies. They're reading an article a reporter or a blogger wrote to get traffic to their site and to get news and to bring the information out. And they don't understand the scientific stuff behind it. And they just start putting in things like possible and probable. There's a big difference between a possible and a probable. And people read it and they say, well, it's a carcinogen. The EPA says it's a carcinogen and therefore you can't use it. And that's where this information starts to fall apart. Now, a little bit of background on the American Mosquito Association at mosquito.org. They do not endorse mosquito misting systems because of the possible of all the probables and possible things of the system killing pollinators, killing bees, contaminating groundwater, drift. There's just a bunch of legitimate concerns about mosquito misting systems. So it is kind of controversial. I had a call from a client that wanted to install one this last week, and we had a discussion, and they come from New York, I think, that she told me, and we were having a discussion, but they're really big on everything natural and organic. I mean, they eat organic food. They don't use toxic chemicals in their home. They're very careful about, and she reads all the labels. She goes online and does study on all the inactive ingredients. Highly educated people. Remember that the people that are calling us, people that are calling, at least they're calling me, are looking for something different than what everybody else is offered. That's our unique selling proposition. That's our USP. We are in the category of pest control, but we're really in a far subcategory about being eco-friendly. And they're really legitimately concerned about these issues. And they raise questions that prompt me to stop, think, and say, I need to give you I hate giving people a simplistic answer. Like, well, this doesn't contaminate anything, and you're just being silly or whatever. No, these are people who are doing research. But the problem is interpreting the data. And the articles that they are reading, most of the time, are articles written in blogs, in specific types of groups and sections of people that get together to write things, and they all join together, and they all basically regurgitate the same information. And the reason I tell you this is because as we get more and more into IPM, as we get more into this natural, all this getting rid of GMOs, it's affecting everything that we do, and it's affecting our business. And I think we need to be intelligent about how we respond to somebody questioning us, questioning our product, because we are limited by the products made available to us. Unless you're a chemist and you can come up with your own chemical and then register it and getting through all that process, we're dependent upon the products that are available to us. And we have to be educated now, not only about the active ingredients, but also the inactive ingredients. And she raised a question about, well, don't you know the dangers of sodium lauryl sulfate? And it came up with, well, she asked me what product is it. Look, the only product that we feel comfortable recommending is this product for our misting system. We don't feel comfortable using pyrethrins, pyrethroids, those types of products. This is the only, because we sell so many products and there's so much going around, and we don't want to make sure that we have a lot of customers that have waterfront properties. And those are the most expensive properties, and those are the clients that want this type of service. But unfortunately, there's not any product out there, or there wasn't, or there's not that many that you can use around aquatic life. And they triggered my thought originally, how can I get mosquito control around? When I went to a restaurant that was a waterside restaurant, they had a mosquito misting system right near the water. And I said, there has to be a product. And I started doing research on it, and I found one. And I didn't feel like Mosquito.org didn't feel comfortable selling mosquito misting systems. I do now because of this new product that is available. And I'm more comfortable selling it. I will sell it to people, but we do an evaluation of the property and say, look, based on everything that's around you, I don't recommend you using a mosquito misting system. You're probably better off with a barrier service. But the customer raised the question is, what active ingredients use? And I said, well, these are the active ingredients in the product. She was calling around, talking to other installers, other companies, came back to me. We had we had about 3 phone conversations about this. And, like I said, I enjoy those conversations because 1, it lets me know what's going on in the marketplace. 2, it engages me with the customer to understand the customer. A lot of people get irritated with that. I don't, because I really want to listen to the client and understand what the client's concerns are and where they want to go, and then best guide them to the best answer that I can give them. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I can't change what we use, but at least I can tell the customer, yes, it does contain this, it does contain that. Let the customer make an educated decision. And some people will get highly offended, like, these customers are idiots. And I've heard the comments of, they're not in that marketplace. They're in a different marketplace. We're in that marketplace of creating a category. We have a blue ocean strategy. We're trying to get customers that don't want the other stuff. And that's how we're differentiating ourselves. That's our unique selling proposition. And they raised the question of sodium lauryl sulfate. Does your product have sodium lauryl sulfate? And I said, yes, it does. It's one of the active ingredients in there. It's actually a surfactant. And what it does is it actually, it's like, it creates like a foaming action, and it destroys the way the product works is the product destroys the exoskeleton of the insect. It's not a toxin. It's not a stomach poison. It's not a neurotoxin. It basically destroys the exoskeleton of the mosquito. And that's why it needs to be applied multiple times a day, because it doesn't have all the other side effects, but it does control mosquitoes very well. And she says, don't you know the dangers of sodium lauryl sulfate? And I said, honestly, I had to say, no, we don't. But when something like that happens, somebody questions what we're using, it is my responsibility to investigate it, find out where they got the information, and then be able to either affirm or deny the information. My attitude, and this comes from years of teaching and debating, and I don't debate and I don't argue with people simply to show them how wrong they are or that I am right. I debate from the perspective with people on, I want to get to the truth, whatever that truth is. So it doesn't make a difference to me to defend my position on sodium lauryl sulfate, because I don't believe it's like some people, the attitude is your product toxic? The simplistic answer that every pest control operator has or technician is, no, it is safe to use according to the EPA if you follow label directions. Well, so was DDT. So was Agent Orange. Do you see my point? That's a very simplistic answer that most people who are intelligent, who study, who are affluent, who are college educated, and we're getting into the millennials now, and that doesn't fly. You need to have a realistic answer, whatever that answer is, to have a real answer, not a simplistic answer. And unfortunately, I'm wired that way, where most people do not want to ask me questions because they don't want to know the long answer. and they refuse to ask me a lot of questions, but my customers are asking questions and I need to have answers. So I looked and says, okay, let's look into sodium lauryl sulfate, where she got that information. And I did, I will track information down a rabbit hole and come up with an answer. And when I started looking into it, I found 4 articles that basically are a regurgitation of one article that was published by Mercola. And Mercola took a study that the government did, the NIH, and they published these studies, and they took it and they use words that make people doubt or think that that product is toxic. And because sodium lauryl sulfate is used in about 100 million products, in soaps, detergents, it's used on everything, cosmetics. They wrote an article, and then companies like Skin Deep and Live Strong took that article, rewrote it, spun it, and now it's out there and people are reading this. And of course they have, you put up that and that's the first thing that comes up on the first 5 articles. Nobody reads past the first 3. Most people just like, where do you bury your body? Well, on the second page of Google, because nobody looks there. But all the information is really there. And I started doing research on sodium lauryl sulfate. And what I came up with is that there was an NIH, NCBI study that totally debunks what these people wrote. And as a matter of fact, they misquoted a doctor as saying he said this, and the doctor in the article had to write back, their lawyers, and said, no, we never said that. That's not what we intended to say for that article. And, this is what we meant. And the articles are bogus when you look at the science. So there is an NIH study, a long-term repetitive sodium lauryl induced irritation on skin. They couldn't get every single time an irritation on the skin. It is an irritant. It will to some people. And what the point is that this product is basically, an eye irritant. And that it causes, the doctor was an ocular doctor that was quoted. And he says, no, it doesn't cause any damage to the eye. That's not what I said in my study. And they took his study and ran with it. And I've got links to all of this on the podcast. There's 7 final reports on the safety assessment of sodium lauryl sulfate and ammonium lauryl sulfate. And what they used is that they got the data of how it's derived, and that the byproduct of one of the chemicals that is used to derive it is a possible carcinogen that causes cancer. And the product in sodium lauryl sulfate is not used, and you can actually do a study on a purity study to find out if that product is in there or not before you use the sodium lauryl sulfate. And it's not available in the sodium lauryl sulfate. So it brings all these questions. Remember, what we do is highly controversial, and it's going to get more controversial. And what we have to do is be number one, highly educated. No longer can you just tell the customer, oh, this is safe. You can't do that. You have to be able to have an answer for what and that's my goal on this podcast, is to educate people on these issues and bring them to light. But the study, basically, if you look at the study, the evidence for safe use of household cleaning products, and what you got to understand about the eye. Let me because it is an eye irritant. If you put it directly into the eye, anything is going to irritate your eye. And here's why. I'm also a certified pool operator. And I used to get clients all the time to tell my pool guy is putting too much chlorine in the pool. It's irritating my kids' eyes. Well, I don't know any pool operator that puts too much chlorine, because that stuff costs money. Just like in pest control. Not too many people put too much of the stuff out. So I say, that usually isn't the case. It's usually that they didn't balance the pH right. So I test the water, and sure enough, the pH is out of whack. It's either too high or too low. And that's what irritates the eye, because the eye has a perfect pH of 7.2. If you go above that, just 7.3, 7.4, it'll get irritated. If you go below that, to like 6.8, 6.9, it'll get very irritated. Second, the reason you smell chlorine is because you have free chlorine that's in that pool. And because it's being used up and binding to, the ammonia and all that, and it releases it and you smell it. The chlorine by itself in a pool doesn't smell. So all these issues, anything can be an eye irritant. Anything can cause skin irritation. I mean, people that are sensitive, you can get natural products. Everything has, mostly when you read it, if you read a label of any chemical product, it will tell you it's almost a skin irritant or an eye irritant. If it gets into your eyes, you got to wash it out. Just about every single product. And when you read an article that it causes eye irritation, if you're misting it and you're out there and you're standing below the nozzle and letting it fall on your face, yeah, it's going to be an irritant. Possibly. But if your system is turning on when nobody's outside and then it's settled, then you can go out and do whatever it is you need to do and enjoy your backyard. So what is the product that I feel happy with? It's Napravit Pro Plus. It's made by Natural Misting Solutions. And it is sodium lauryl sulfate with soybean oil, corn oil, and soap. The soap by itself is going to be an eye irritant by itself. It uses natural soap. The other product that is really cool, it's called Zero Bite. And Zero Bite is made by Piranha, which has the sodium lauryl sulfate. It has the geranol, clove oil, and peppermint oil. And clove oil and geranol and peppermint oil are one of the most effective together insecticides, natural insecticides. We've been able to wipe out tick infestations with that combination. And it does have, and it's for use in automated misting systems, both of those products. So either one is a great option and a great solution to the pyrethrum and the pyrethroid. But know that sodium lauryl sulfate has been proven to be totally safe to use in that product. And I feel comfortable promoting and selling a misting system with that. Other than that, folks, I hope you have a great one. I will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.